I know y'all are excited to learn something new, so today we're going to talk about possessive pronouns. Don't get too excited. First, let's talk about what you already know. There are two types of possessive adjectives. The first type that we've learned were the very simple mi, mis, tu, tus, su, sus, nuestro, nuestra, and su, sus. So the only one you really had to worry about was nuestro and nuestra when the noun that you were describing was either feminine or masculine. Otherwise, all you had to worry about was whether or not the noun was singular or plural. Now, this possessive adjective that we first learned, the possessive adjective always comes before the nouns. It's like the cart coming before the horse. So there are a few examples. We could talk about some examples that we use in Spanish too were often for clothing. So mis zapatos son azules. As you can see, the mis comes before zapatos. Su camiseta es roja. Again, the su coming before the camiseta. And tu bolígrafo es muy guay. Again, the tu coming before bolígrafo. The tu does not have an accent in this situation. The second type of possessive adjectives we learned were a little bit more advanced. As you can see by the visual, the cart is now coming after the horse, or the possessive adjective is now coming after the noun. Some examples we could talk about are el perro bonito es mío. So the pretty dog is mine. Los pasteles son suyos. The cakes are yours. Now these are more advanced because all of them depend on whether or not the noun that it describes is feminine or masculine and singular or plural. Sometimes you can omit the verb if you're asking a question or responding to a question. For example, la clase nuestra, it means our class. So before we get into any further information, we should probably talk about what a pronoun is. So far we've been talking about possessive adjectives, and now we're going to move on to possessive pronouns. So by now I would assume that you know that a pronoun is a word that replaces a noun. So this should sound familiar, right? We've talked about pronouns. We've talked about possessive adjectives. We're kind of building a pyramid of knowledge, if you will. Luckily for you all, possessive pronouns are the same words as possessive adjectives, so there's really not a whole lot of new stuff to learn. You're going to use these possessive pronouns to replace nouns that are possessed by someone. And just like possessive adjectives, they must agree both in gender and number of the noun they replace. I'll say that again. Just like possessive adjectives, they must agree in both number and gender of the noun that they replace. A lot of times we use possessive pronouns in question-answer situations or conversation situations. So, for example, I could say a statement, mi perro es muy bonito. And then I'll ask you a question, ¿cómo es el tuyo? And I don't need to say el perro again because it's implied by my first statement. She is pretty. So another example would be, no es tu lápiz, es mío. I don't need to say mi lápiz o el lápiz es mío because I've already indicated that I'm talking about el lápiz in the first part of the statement. And the last example is, su casa no es tan pequeña como la mía. So that might sound familiar from Spanish too. When you're comparing two things, it's implied that the la mía at the end is in reference to my house because I said it at the beginning of the statement.